Chimalpopoca, the third ruler of Tenochtitlan. His name meant smoking shield. His mother was the daughter of the most powerful warlord in the Valley of Mexico. For years, that bloodline made him untouchable. Then his protector died, and everything collapsed in a single season. In 1427, the Tepenac tyrant Moctezuma seized power. Forces invaded Tenochtitlan. Chimalpopoca was captured, transported to Azcapotzalco, and locked inside a wooden cage as a public trophy. A god king, behind wooden bars, while his enemies walked past and laughed. That night, he hanged himself by his own belt in the dark. And here's the twist nobody mentions. Some scholars argued this wasn't even suicide. A rigorous analysis of the primary sources suggests this was a coup, that his own successor had him eliminated and rewrote history to blame the Tepenecs. Murder dressed up as shame. Either way, no battlefield, no glory, no sun. The Aztecs believed a king who died in a cage went to 9 levels of underground darkness. The third ruler of Tenochtitlan may have walked straight into it. Tizoc, the 7th emperor, had one job: feed the machine, capture enemies, bring them to the stone, prove the gods were being paid. Tizoc publicly failed. He lost a major battle to the Tarascans and then did something that sealed his fate. He commissioned a giant carved stone depicting himself conquering 15 cities. The archaeological record says he barely conquered any of them. He built propaganda to hide weakness in a court of warriors who could smell it. That is the worst possible move you can make when your own nobility is already sharpening the cups. His court poisoned him in 1486, silently. No ceremony, no battlefield, no escort to the sun. Just a quiet drink from the men who called him Lord. Here's your, wait, really, fact. The Aztec emperor who supposedly ran the most violent empire on earth was removed the same way a Roman Senate removed a bad senator, poisoned at dinner, replaced before the body was cold. The man who replaced him conquered 45 nations and presided over 20,000 sacrifices in 4 days. His death was somehow even more embarrassing. Tlahuicole. Stop here, because this one is different. Tlahuicole was a Tlaxcaltec warrior, considered the most formidable fighter of his country, carrying a war club so heavy ordinary soldiers couldn't lift it off the ground. He was captured during a flower war and brought before Emperor Moctezuma II, who did something that had never happened before in Aztec history. He offered Tlahuicole unconditional freedom. Walk out, go home, you're too impressive to kill. Tlahuicole refused. He said surviving capture would be shameful. He demanded the gladiatorial sacrifice, bound at the ankle to a massive circular stone, given only a blunted weapon made to fight fully armed jaguar knights one after another. He killed 8. He wounded 20 more. When they finally brought him down and dragged him to the altar, his heart was cut out and offered to the sun. He is the only man in this entire video who died exactly the way he chose. Every warrior after him was cheated out of the death he spent his whole life trying to earn. Remember that as the story gets darker. Tlacaelel. He never wore the crown. That is exactly why he mattered. Tlacaelel was the power behind the throne, the chief advisor who helped turn Tenochtitlan from one city among many into the center of an empire. In 1428, alongside Ahuitzotl, he helped destroy Tepenec dominance and open the path for Aztec expansion. And then he stayed there, not for one ruler, for several. Kings changed, Tlacaelel remained. While other men wore the turquoise crown, he kept shaping the state from the shadows. The throne gave glory. His office gave control. That is what makes him different from every other figure in this story. He was not the face of the machine. He was one of the men who helped build it. And his ending is almost insultingly quiet. By around 1487, Tlacaelel was dead. No last battle, no sacrificial stone, no dramatic betrayal. just the end of the mastermind who outlasted the rulers he advised and helped create the imperial order they ruled. The kings got the monuments. He got the empire. Ahuitzotl. Back to the emperors and the embarrassments. In 1487, Ahuitzotl dedicated his newly completed temple. Prisoners of war formed 4 lines, each extending over 3 miles. As many as 20,000 were sacrificed while conquered provinces watched. This was a man who personally tore hearts from living chests and held them toward the sun. Then he built an aqueduct. The project was miscalculated. It brought in so much water it flooded the entire capital. And according to primary sources, Ahuitzotl, the man who had orchestrated the largest ritual bloodletting in human history, slipped on wet stone, cracked his skull on a stone lintel as the dike broke, and died of what we would today call a subdural hematoma. The conqueror of 45 nations, killed by his own plumbing. A second account suggests poisoning, which means the most terrifying warlord in Mesoamerica either died like a cartoon character slipping on a banana peel, or exactly like the weak emperor he had replaced. The gods he fed so extravagantly gave him nothing back, not even a dry floor. Cuitlahuac. He defeated Hernán Cortés. That sentence needs the land because it is completely true and almost nobody knows it. In June 30th, 1520, La Noche Triste, Cuitlahuac drove the conquistadors out of Tenochtitlan with catastrophic losses, over 600 Spanish soldiers dead, all cannon gone. Cortés himself wept on a tree outside the city, the worst defeat he ever suffered. Cuitlahuac had done what everyone said was impossible. Then the Spanish left behind something they didn't even know they were carrying. The Florentine Codex records what came next in a survivor's own words: sores erupting from head to foot, agonizing, unstoppable. The Aubin Codex records Cuitlahuac's fate with brutal simplicity. 80 days into his reign, he died of pustules. Here's the number that still doesn't feel real. Smallpox killed an estimated 5 to 8 million people in central Mexico within a decade. Cortés didn't conquer the Aztec Empire, a virus did. He just showed up to collect the ruins. Cuitlahuac defeated European steel. He could not defeat European biology. Moctezuma II. He was carried everywhere on a golden litter. His feet were not permitted to touch common ground. To look directly at his face was forbidden. By June 1520, this same man stood on a palace balcony, a prisoner surrounded by Spanish soldiers, about to beg his own people to stop fighting. They recognized him immediately. According to concordant accounts from 3 separate Spanish witnesses, the crowd was so enraged at their king's submission they refused to hear him. They threw stones. 3 struck him, head, arm, leg. He refused treatment. He refused food. He chose to die. A clinical analysis published in Neurosurgical Focus concludes Moctezuma was likely experiencing major depression in his final weeks, a god king who had simply stopped wanting to live. The man whose feet had never touched common ground, brought down by the hands that once reached to him in worship. The Florentine Codex offers one colder alternative. The Spanish strangled him once he was no longer useful and staged the stoning as a cover story. The truth has never been settled. Either version is a worse death than a cage. Cuauhtemoc. He was 18 when he took the throne of a city already half destroyed by plague. No food, no allies, no functional military. Every surrounding city-state had surrendered to Cortés. His army was fighting hand-to-hand in rubble, starving inside their own walls. He fought for 3 months anyway. On August 13, 1520, crossing Lake Texcoco to seek reinforcements, he was intercepted by a Spanish brigantine. He surrendered and offered Cortés his own knife, asking to be killed. Cortés refused. What followed was methodical and unhurried. Cortés ordered his treasurer to torture Cuauhtemoc, pouring oil on his feet, holding them over open fire, searching for hidden treasure. When his companion broke and begged to reveal their secrets, Cuauhtemoc turned to him and said, "Do you think this is a pleasurable bath for me?" He said nothing more, revealed nothing. The treasure was never found. In 1525, Cortés took Cuauhtemoc on his expedition to Honduras and had him hanged from a ceiba tree on charges Bernal Diaz, who was there, who served under Cortés, personally called unjust and based on no tangible evidence. Cuauhtémoc's final recorded words were directed at the man holding the rope. "O Malinzin, now I understand your false promises and the kind of death you had in store for me. You are killing me unjustly. May God demand justice from you." An empire built entirely on the theology of the honorable, violent death. Warriors who fed the gods 10,000 hearts a year, all to earn the right to die the right way. The scorecard? Died in a cage by his own belt or murdered by his successor. Poisoned at dinner by his own court. Killed by his own plumbing. Dead of pustules in 80 days. Stoned by his own worshippers, or strangled quietly by his captors. Hanged from a tree in a jungle far from home, on charges everyone at the table knew were invented. One man, and only one, died on his own terms. He had to fight 8 warriors with a fake weapon just to earn it. The machine consumed everyone who built it. Which of these deaths hit hardest? Drop it in the comments. I read every single one. And if you stayed until Cuauhtémoc's last words, you already know what kind of channel this is. Subscribe, because the next video goes just as deep.